Pick Up Sports Talks Around the League series. Today we're going to be talking about the NFC East. I'm Brandon Schiffman.
And I'm Spencer Stein. This is a division that has been competitive in the past, but not necessarily all that good.
Correct.
So we're just going to talk about if that's going to turn around this year. And I'm going to start with the team that I do not think is going to turn around this year, and that is the New York Football Giants. They have not been good in a while. Their play has not been good in any position, but they had a top draft this year. I thought they had the best draft in the NFL. I would definitely rank them in the top three with the Jets and the Ravens. So let's just jump in with them. What are their expectations after the draft? Are they similar to last year, or should they improve?
They should be slightly improved. However, they're still a bottom-tier franchise, does that make sense? I mean, you look at it, Kayvon Thibodeau is a huge ad. I think he's going to have a lot of impact right out of the gate. Could be a potential dark horse defensive rookie of the year candidate. Evan Neal, I don't love as much. He hasn't looked as good in training camp, so I'm a little worried about that pickup myself. However, he has a ton of potential. He's an Alabama lineman. But yeah, overall as a team, you're looking at a bottom of the barrel franchise, simply put. Like, as much as I want to see the Giants succeed, just because they're a team that my family has rooted for in the past, it's just not their year, and I don't think it will be for quite a while.
Yeah, and I'm kind of confused why their over-under for wins is 7.5. I mean, it's 6.5 in some books, but either way, that's above the Bears, it's above the Lions. And I just don't see them as an improved team, and I think those expectations are too high. They won 4 games last year, and they didn't get 3.5 wins better. Correct. So I will obviously be hammering this under. I want to go through both sides of the ball. I want to start with offense.
Yep.
And this is a bottom of the barrel franchise. You repeat that a lot because that is dead accurate.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones is a bottom 3 quarterback in the NFL.
Bottom day.
I was
going
to say a top 3 worst, but the only franchises with the worst quarterback player now, I think, are the Seahawks, and that's close between Geno Smith and Daniel Jones, and I guess Jacoby Brissett, but who knows how long he's going to be starting for the Browns. So that is already not good. Mm-hmm. On top of it, their O-line, it's a little improved with Evan Neal. We'll see if Andrew Thomas can finally take that step forward. He was their top 5 draft pick a few years ago, and he hasn't looked great. According to ESPN, they have the 30th worst pass block in the NFL. Their run block is supposed to be better, and I don't know why there's such a discrepancy between their run and pass block, but that's already a bad sign. No, Daniel Jones can run, but he needs to have time in the pocket. On top of it, they have bad receivers. Yes. Kenny Golladay proved last year he's done, and I was big on Kenny Golladay last year.
He got $72 million to not do anything.
No effort. Wan'Dale Robinson was a late first-round pick, but we don't know what they're going to do with him. Sterling Shepard's always hurt. Darius Lane's nothing. The real only receiver who I think has potential as of now is Kadarius Toney, and he's been hurt a lot.
He has a lot of off-the-field issues,
off-the-field issues. Saquon's coming off tons of injuries. He had an amazing rookie year, a good second year, and hasn't been great since. So I don't trust him. Therefore, nothing on their offense is good. I could argue they have the worst offense in the league. I think it's up there. I'm especially not liking Daniel Jones this year.
I agree. I think the Bears... Here's the thing, right? You look at it. Their wide receiver core might be slightly better than the Bears. And
I disagree. I think Darnell Mooney's better than any receiver they have.
That's true.
They have more depth, but not by much. Galladay is not much better than Pringle, and Velus Jones is I know he's drafted in the 3rd, and Wan'Dale Robinson was the 1st, but there's not that much discrepancy, especially when they're rookies that aren't expected to get that much.
What I will say is that I feel like the Giants' floor is just extremely low as a team overall. I mean, you're looking at a team that you look at all the people, it was interesting, all the names, basically every name you mentioned in just mentioning their offense has injury troubles.
Yeah.
This is a team full of injuries and injury problems.
And it came out last year.
Yeah. And it's just something that's just very problematic.
And before we move on to the defense, I will say one positive. I think a breakout player for this team is tight end Daniel Bellinger. He hasn't gotten that much action. He hasn't gotten action in the NFL, but they did seem to go to Evan Ingram a good amount, Daniel Jones. And they also have Ricky Seals-Jones, so I think they can target tight ends a lot. I want to move to the defense because people think this defense is going to be improved, and when you look at them on paper, Dexter Lawrence isn't bad. Kayvon Thibodeau was a good pick. Leonard Williams hasn't been bad in the past. Even Blake Martinez was, I think, good on Green Bay as a linebacker, but their secondary isn't all that good. Dory Jackson was kind of a big name, but overall, my point here being is that I think their defense is going to be very, very weak this year, and so is their offense, and that's football. Yeah. If you have a bad defense, bad offense, what are you going to do? So I think
special teams is all right.
Okay, sure. Graham Gano was a good kicker last year, but I think in the NFC, I have a bottom tier of Seahawks, Giants, and Falcons, and I think I put the Seahawks above the Giants, so I legitimately think they're bottom 2 team in the NFC. Yeah. I don't like either side of the ball. They're injury prone, as you said. Their coaching, it's Brian Daboll. I did like that hire.
He'll be helpful.
But I don't know if is up to the task. We'll see that because he's been playing with Josh Allen. Now he's Daniel Jones. And I know people say they have similar games, but Daniel Jones is just nowhere near him. So I really, really dislike the New York Giants this year. I will not be drafting any of them in fantasy, even though people like Saquon Barkley. I do not.
I made that mistake last year.
The New York Giants, I do not think should be a good team, and I don't like them on either side of the ball. Yeah. So basically all weakness.
Yeah, I'm hammering the under 7.5. I don't even see them winning 6 games this year. Maybe 5. If they get lucky, I'll give them 5, but they're looking at like a 4 season.
Even just look at their start of their schedule. You like teams like the Panthers and Titans. I'm not having to do great this season, but I give them like automatic first 2 weeks. They're going to beat the Giants. Like the Cowboys beat them twice, the Eagles beat them twice. I think they probably get a win against Washington. They play the Texans, Seahawks, and Jaguars. I think they get one win out of those, and maybe one against the Lions. I see them getting 4 or 5 wins this year. So way under the under. I would hammer even the under 6.5.
Yeah, this isn't exactly a great football team by any means.
For sure not. But I do think moving on that the 7.5 under over for the Washington Commanders is a good call.
Yeah.
I think it's really difficult to judge that. So before we make our pick there, what do you think of the Commanders going to this year with new quarterback Carson Wentz?
So the one thing, the Carson Wentz Taylor Heineke comparison I want to say is, I think at their bottoms they're very similar, but I think Carson Wentz obviously has, in quotes, more upside, but in reality we haven't seen said upside in like 4 or 5 years now.
But when we did see said upside, he was
one of the best
almost an
quarterbacks in the
MVP.
NFL.
He would have been an MVP if he didn't get hurt.
It's been 5 years now, and he hasn't even looked like a shell of himself. Even he's looked like a completely different guy. I see him helping them out a little bit, maybe bringing a little bit more versatility to the offense, maybe giving it a little bit more structure, but in all honesty, I don't think this is he's any type of savior for this offense.
I don't think there's any talk to comparing him with Heineke. Heineke's clearly the backup. He did not show any glimpse of being a franchise quarterback. The thing with Carson Wentz is he was a decent systems QB last year. He wasn't horrible. He really choked in that last game. Here's the thing with the Commanders. They don't have the same system that the Colts have. I think they have just good coaching with Ron Rivera, but the Colts had a great O-line, a good running game, decent, similar receivers, and this team doesn't have that. I think Antonio Gibson is not going to have a good year, and I think this might be his last year in the NFL as a starter. I think Antonio Gibson this year is going to prove it was kind of a lucky year. He could do well. I could be dead wrong. That's where I see this going. J.D. McKissick is going to steal some carries from him, too. I think he's more of a third down back, though.
Yep.
I do like their receivers. I like Terry McLaurin a lot, and I was huge on Jahan Dotson, and Curtis Samuel was even on some fantasy teams last year, so they could be solid. Logan Thomas isn't horrible, too, but their O-line is nothing to be proud of. Yeah. All I could say about them is they have the second worst offense in this division, only because the Giants are there. Yeah. But bottom half of the NFL offense, Carson Wentz, I think, is going to have not a great year because the system isn't that good. But who knows? As you said, his ceiling is high. Maybe he'll live up to it. I just don't see that I don't think he's going to, and I don't see anyone else thinking he's going to.
Yeah. With that being said, though, I think their defense is above average. Chase Young, Montez Sweat, I think Kendall Fuller as well. They definitely do have some guys to be on the lookout.
I mean, they have a good front seven. Yeah. One of the best in the league, and they're all young, which is good. Jonathan Allen, too. Yeah, Allen, too. And they have some good linebackers. Their secondary is not great, but we have to consider, last year they were considered one of the top defenses going into the league, going into the year, and it just seems like they took a step back, and that worries me. When teams start to regress, sometimes that leads to a huge slip. I do think Chase Young is fine. I do think Jonathan Allen's fine. I do think Montez Sweat is fine, but I don't think this is going to be a year where it all comes together for their defense. I think it'll be above average slightly. It'll win that they will win some games, some low-scoring games. Chase Young's also coming off injury, so I do not think this is going to be.
I think he's also trying to shake that bust title off because I think.
I don't think people think he's a bust. He was great in his first year. Everyone knows the talent's there. He really the only knock against him is he got hurt. I don't think you can mention any bad play from Chase Young.
People are starting to forget about his good play his first year, though. That's what I'll say. But yeah, overall, their defense is definitely their strength. Weakness, just the whole offense. There isn't other than Terry McLaurin, who I honestly feel bad for his entire
I think Jahan Dotson will be good this year.
But Terry McLaurin, I just want to say, has been good without a good quarterback for his entire career.
But his entire career is like, 3-4 years?
3-4 years. But still, he's been impressive regardless of that. So I think he'll have a good year. But I think that just overall the Commanders aren't going to have a great year. That is why I'm hammering the under 7.5. But I do think 7.5 is a fair number for them.
Yeah, I'm not hammering it. I will go with the under. I think they're going to get 7 wins. I think this is going to be a consistent team, a consistently mediocre team. I think the Washington Commanders I can trust to be bad teams in the NFL, like how they're playing Jacksonville and Detroit in the first 2 weeks. Yeah. And I can trust them to lose to good teams in the NFL, like Green Bay. So I'll take 7 wins on the dot. Their defense is going to be what wins them games. Their defense will be above average. I think Chase Young will shake off that bust label that you say people have about him, even though I don't think it's there. But Carson Wentz, once again, will have a mediocre mediocre season. I could see him
Mediocre
returning.
at best, I don't see
Not media. I could see him returning as their quarterback next year.
Oh yeah, I thought you were going to say return to MVP form.
No, of course not. But their team once again doesn't have too high of expectations, and I think they will meet their mediocre expectations.
That's a completely fair take. Let's move on to a team that I know you are super high on, so I'll give you first word on that.
The Philadelphia Eagles. I hated the Eagles when they had Carson Wentz. Now I'm liking them. Their expectations are high. They're a sleeper team for a lot of people, including myself. And I think Jalen Hurts is what this year depends around.
Yep.
This is his make or break year in the NFL. If he's not good, he's going to be out the league. Or not out the league, but not a starter. He's going to be out of that starting job for sure.
I don't even think he'll lose his starting job. I think he'll slowly start.
Oh, he 100% will. This is a make or break season. Everyone in Philadelphia knows it. Everyone in the NFL knows it. This year he needs to prove it, and I think he's going to prove it. He finally has all the assets around him. He's a good running quarterback. He has a decent arm. A.J. Brown is such a difference maker. He's a top 10 receiver in the NFL. And to put him with Devontae Smith, who showed flashes last year, and a top O-line in the NFL. They might have the best O-line in the NFL. Jason Kelsey's injury is a bit worrisome, but they still have Lane Johnson. They still have Jordan Mailata. A lot of pieces on that O-line. It's top of the league. That's going to be what carries them. I can see the RPO working with Miles Sanders. I know you hate Miles Sanders, and I know his production hasn't been there in the past. Yeah. But if you give him an RPO quarterback like Jalen Hurts and this great O-line, I don't see why he can't succeed. Do you have a reason?
That's a completely fair take. I just think
he's not going to be the core of the offense. Yeah. It's the RPO. Yeah.
He's never quite had any. He's never really done much that's impressed me. Overall, this team, I like what you said about Jalen Hurts in the sense that this year is a real opportunity for him, and I think he's better than average quarterback in the NFL. I just think there are a lot of question marks around him. I think their offense. I think there might be a few too many hands in the bowl personally for just opportunities. I think, especially with fantasy, but we don't got to talk about that right now. I think that the Eagles are definitely looking like a good team, could potentially be a wild card team for me. My record prediction overall, I'm saying slightly under 9.5. I think they win 9, but this one's going to be a sweat for sure. I wouldn't be surprised if they win 11, or I wouldn't be surprised if they win 7.
I mean, I think Miles Sanders, going back to him, is the definition of a system RB. You usually see system quarterbacks. Yeah. The talent's somewhat there. We saw him good in college, saw him good in his rookie year. But behind this O-line, behind a quarterback that can run, and behind what's going to be a good passing game, he's going to be good. I think this is going to be the best offense in the division. I think they're going to be a better offense than the Dallas Cowboys, which is a hot take because I think the Cowboys, after losing Gallup and all their receivers outside of CeeDee Lamb and Amari, they are not going to have the passing game there, and I think their running game is slightly worse because of the lack of O-line. They lost a few O-linemen. Plus, the Eagles have Dallas Goedert, who's been consistent since they lost Zach Ertz. Yeah. So let's switch to the defensive side of things. I like their offense a lot, and I think their defense is solid. I mean, it isn't bad. I think their secondary is going to be good. I love the addition of James Bradbury. So I think if they can stay solid there, they also picked up Hassan Reddick. Mm-hmm. They will be a solid team.
Yeah, I think that there's a ton of upside in just putting some faith in the Eagles. I think they're going to be a good team this year. With that being said, I don't see them being as great as some people say they're going to be. I still think there are some question marks around Jalen Hurts, so I'm a little hesitant to put it all on the line for them.
I'm taking the over 9.5. I think they'll get 10 wins. I think they're going to get in the playoffs, and I think they have a very good shot at this division. I kind of compare this race. If you saw our episode on Monday, this is very similar to how I see the Vikings-Packers race. I want to pick the Vikings bad. They just haven't won the division in a while, and I think them and the Packers are right there and there. That's how I see the Eagles and Cowboys. Yeah. And I think the Eagles could be a better team. I'm more confident in the Eagles winning this division than the Vikings winning the North. I still think I have to pick the Cowboys because I'm a wimp, but the Eagles have a real shot this division. The Cowboys better look out.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about the Cowboys. Can I start with this one? So I think the Cowboys are in a really weird spot now as a franchise because they really put it all on the line for this Dak and Zeke combination to work, just with all the money they spent on the two of them. And now it slowly feels like they're kind of tearing it apart. Not really, though. I think they're still looking to contend. I think they still have the talent to contend, but they have definitely regressed since last year, but they still have the same expectation, if that makes sense. What I mean by that is the talent is slightly less, but they still have the same expectation. They still want to compete, and I think it's a fair take. I think CeeDee Lamb's going to assert himself as a top 3 wide receiver in the NFL, and statistics-wise, maybe not talent-wise this season. I think Zeke's washed. I don't think that's any secret to anyone. And I think overall this defense, kind of overrated. I like Micah Parsons a lot. I think he's one of the best players in the NFL. But people act like they have some great secondary just because Trayvon Diggs was getting a lot of interceptions.
He's not good.
Yeah.
So I think the Cowboys, ever since they signed Zeke to that big deal, which I think is 3 or 4 years ago now, Every year, it's like, this needs to be the Cowboys' year. Every year, they need to improve and get closer to winning a playoff game. They came closer last year.
Yep.
And it just feels like this needs to be the next step in the evolution. And I don't see why it would be. They lost Amari Cooper. Michael Gallup is out, as I said. Ezekiel Elliott is no longer an elite running back.
Yep.
Tony Pollard's good.
Yep.
Tony Pollard will split the carries there. And a lot of people are crying for Tony Pollard to become the starting running back in Dallas. But I realistically think that it's about a split backfield. They need to use both. They could utilize both, so I think that could be useful. But I just don't see them being any better than last year because I think their offense is going to take a step back on both running and passing, and their O-line has gotten worse. They lost some big names. Tyron Smith, we never know if he's going to be healthy. He's kind of the big name on their O-line. Zach Martin's just getting older, so I really don't see why their offense would be any better than last year. Last year was good, but not great. So that's my issue with the Cowboys. I still think they'll win 10 or 11 games because they don't have the hardest schedule. They do have some tough games. They start off against Tampa Bay. They play the Bengals early, but then the division games. I think they could beat the Giants twice. I think they could beat the Commanders twice. So
Maybe take a game from the Eagles too.
Yeah, they will take a game from the Eagles. So I think I have to pick them to win the division. But there is no world in which the Dallas Cowboys will win a playoff game. There's just no way. They're incompetent when push comes to shove. I don't trust Mike McCarthy at all, which is a big issue. There's not many teams.
I'm surprised that they didn't get rid of him
No,
last year.
well, Jerry Jones loves him, but there's not many teams I could say their coaching hurts them, and I could say that with the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
I don't see any world they beat San Francisco. They lost them in the playoffs last year. No world they beat the Rams or Tampa. Green Bay even. Both teams seem to choke in the playoffs. I'd take Rodgers over him. Yeah. And I think if they match up with the Philadelphia Eagles or the Minnesota Vikings in the playoffs, they will lose.
Yep.
I like both those teams more than them. I like the Eagles more than the Cowboys this season. I just think it might take the Eagles some time to ramp it up. The Cowboys defense is fine. As you said, I love Micah Parsons. Don't like Trayvon Diggs at all. Nope. Don't like Malik Hooker. He was supposed to be big out of Ohio State a bunch of years ago. He has never shown it to me. I don't like this team.
Yeah. I personally have the Cowboys winning 11 this year. I'll just say it real quick, so that's the over. But this one's going to be a sweat as well. I think that once they get to the playoffs, it's going to become a choke for them. I just think that's kind of a yearly tradition at this point.
Yeah, so let's get into who will win this division. Yeah. I have the Cowboys under. So if you'll see, just like I had with the NFC North, I have the Eagles with 10 wins and the Cowboys with 10 wins. And statistically, this would go to the Eagles because they have a better win percentage in division. However, I think that if I had to put my money on one of these teams, I would put it on the Cowboys just because it's a model of consistency. It's a safer pick. If you have to bet on this division, take the Cowboys. Even though the Eagles' odds are good, you have to take the Cowboys there. But I think both teams will get 10 wins at least. One could get 11. It's going to come down to it. Dak isn't going to be bad this year. We talked a ton about the Cowboys and barely mentioned Dak. Yeah. Dak is solid. I think it's good they paid him. I think it's good they paid him. I think he'll keep himself in that top 10 quarterback in the NFL conversation. I do think CeeDee Lamb has a good year. But I think losing Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup to injury won't necessarily help him that much because a lot of the attention is going to be on him. That's the issue. But I love Dalton Schultz this year, especially in fantasy. I think he's going to get a lot of touchdowns. And Jalen Tolbert, their rookie receiver they drafted in, I think, the 3rd or 4th round, I think is going to get targets. He's going to be a surprise there. So Dallas has some upside on offense. I just don't think this year it comes together. And I think this is going to be their first time in a while where they regress and Cowboys fans will not be happy. It will lead to the firing of Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, I don't think actually either. So I have the Eagles being a wild card team, the Cowboys winning the division. I don't have either of these teams winning a playoff game.
The Eagles can if the matchup's there.
I see the Eagles being a year out just from contention and the Cowboys being a year past their contention. Like they're on opposite sides of this spectrum. And yeah, I don't have either of them winning a playoff game. But I think this division, with that being said, is always going to be filled with some type of drama, so I'm almost excited about it, but who knows?
I mean, if I have the Eagles as a wild card team, I don't want to spoil all my division winners, but let's be real. I have the Rams winning the West, and I don't think the Eagles beat the Rams in the playoffs, because if they're a wild card team, they're playing a division winner. I don't see them beating Tampa if they win their division. Yeah. I can see them beating Green Bay if they win the North, and I can see them beating Dallas.
I don't know about that.
This is going to be a fun season. I'm going to be riding the Eagles bandwagon this year, along with the Vikings and the Colts. Be sure to tune in tomorrow, another division.
Yep.
We hope you guys are enjoying this series. Be sure to leave comments and feedback. Tell us what you like. Tell us if you like our takes. And
yeah, make sure to keep watching. We got a few episodes left, so yeah, thanks.